All right. Courtney, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Courtney Walton. I am past president of the Kiwanis Club of Ellicott City, and I'm going to talk about introducing PayPal as a method for your clubs to accept payments. So a little bit of background. So Kiwanis Club of Ellicott City, like many Kiwanis clubs, we have accepted primarily check or cash-based donations for a really long time. Last year, actually 2 years ago, for a fundraiser, we experimented with GoFundMe, which is a crowdfunding platform you can use online, because we were hoping that if people had a better way to donate to us using credit card or their bank account, another electronic method, that they would be more likely to donate. So we ended up eventually moving to PayPal because, to be honest with you, it's a much more trusted platform than GoFundMe, for example. You can see here, it is used by over 325 million people across the globe and 28 million merchants. A lot of people use it. You know, you'll see when you go to buy stuff online from a retailer, PayPal is typically an option to purchase as well, instead of using your credit card. So it's very widely trusted, and it does have a nonprofit option available. If you're a 501c3 club, which some of us are, if you have a foundation, you get lower fees for accepting payments. But even if you're a 501c4 general civic service club, you still have the option to accept donations as opposed to just traditional payments. And then finally, the last piece, which is great for us, especially for our treasurer and for our finance committee, is there are a lot of easy to use reports. So you can easily track different donations that you take and export them to QuickBooks. You can put them into Excel, etc. But it becomes a lot easier for accounting purposes. So as far as how to get started, it's actually pretty easy once you have the information that you need and somebody who's willing to give their social security number to PayPal. So really, you sign up just using an email address. We have a Gmail address for our club, ellicottcitykiwanis@gmail.com. That became our login username for PayPal. And then you just enter in some general information about your club, including your website, the date that you're established, and then your bank account info for the club. So when we first brought this up with our club, it was a little alarming because people were like, well, we don't want to give our account number away. But it's just like signing up for any other electronic payment service. And actually, the way that we have our PayPal account set up, we can only transfer money into our bank account. We can't transfer money out. So you don't have to worry about the person who is the PayPal account holder, which in our case is our president, Jennifer Hiscock, but I'm the one who logs into the PayPal account all the time. But there's no way for me to take money from our bank account and use it to buy stuff on PayPal. I can only transfer our donations back into our Howard bank account. All right, let's pop on to the next slide. Perfect. So in terms of how to accept donations, there are a couple different ways depending on how you want to reach your audience. So the first option is a QR code, which you can use electronically, but you could also print it out if you are at an in-person event and you want to accept donations that way. It's super easy. Most smartphones nowadays, if you just hold up the camera to the QR code, it'll automatically take your donor to your PayPal account page where they can make a donation using their credit card or their own PayPal account. There's also an option just to put a general hyperlink, which I'll show you. We have a couple of examples on the next slide. And then the other option, which Jeff is going to talk about in a couple of slides, is actually embedding a donation button onto your website or onto a social media page. So you can have a button on a page for a specific project that you're raising money for, or just a generic donation button if people want to donate to your club directly. It's also great because depending on the different buttons, so you guys all know we have our Backpacks for Breaks project. every time we do a fundraising cycle, we create a different button, and that actually creates a donation program in PayPal. So it's easy for us to track who donated to what, and also easy to export those reports so we know exactly how much money was given to backpacks, exactly how much money was given to our Easter egg fundraiser, and any general donations that we have as well. So this next slide is just a couple of quick examples of how we are accepting donations for our club. So in the top left, you see, this is from a screenshot from our Backpacks for Breaks donation page on our website, ellicotcitykiwanis.org. So you can see here, we have an option that says use this direct link. So people can click on that link directly and it'll take them to this page you see on the right. It has our logo, which you can easily import into the page. And then there's a couple of different options for taking donations. So you can show exactly what program it is. You see it says Backpacks for Breaks Spring 2021. And then you can either have an open amount, people can donate whatever they want, or in our case, we have a couple of preset amounts for people to choose from, which sometimes will encourage people to donate more if they see it as an option. And then there's two options to either donate directly if they have their own PayPal account, or to pay with a debit or a credit card. And then on the bottom right, you'll see that's an example of the embedded button. So that's on every page of our website. Any page someone goes to, they can see that option if they want to make a donation directly to our club.
All right. Good evening, everyone. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Jeffrey Wolf. I'm with the Kiwanis Club of Tysons, and I'm the Capital District Secretary Treasurer. So what I'm going to share with you is, in addition to Courtney's presentation about PayPal, I thought it'd be useful to explain that there are other payment processors out there, and there are some pros and cons to each of them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Stripe, which is kind of the Stripe to PayPal is kind of the Coke to Pepsi of the payment processing world, as it were. Stripe is well used, much like PayPal, but it probably doesn't have the name recognition that PayPal does. Stripe is actually much more integrated into technology that you use every day. So believe it or not, when you're purchasing things on some of the largest retailers on the web, you're actually most of the time you're using Stripe as your payment processor and you don't know it. That is the major difference, because Stripe is a much more transparent platform, meaning that your user, when they go to purchase something from your site, is not going to get a pop-up from PayPal where they need to log in, and it doesn't add, it removes a level of complexity from the application that you're trying to charge money for. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you so you can see what it's like. We actually, the district migrated kind of away from PayPal. PayPal was really the first payment processor that was in the space, and they were fantastic for a long time, but a lot of people got confused with PayPal transactions. So Stripe kind of swooped in and provided a bit of a more transparent experience. And so if you purchase anything, if you attend any district convention or district conference, you purchase anything from the district website, you're actually using Stripe as your processor. You don't realize it though. So I'll show you how that works, and I'll show you. I can actually show you both in if your club is using one of the new Kiwanis WordPress templates. There's the ability to collect payments from both PayPal and Stripe in that form system. This gets to both PayPal and Stripe. They both charge the exact same amount of money. So that's everyone's first question is, what does it cost to do this for our club? And there's no difference in the cost. It is the standard in the industry is 2.9% plus 30 cents for each transaction. So Courtney's got examples there for you. $100 donation would be $96.80. However, if you are a 501c3, you actually get a discounted rate of 2.2%, but that would have to be, your 501c3 arm, your club foundation. There is, however, I will point out something about in-person transactions in a moment. So, if the prices are the same, if the costs are the same, then what really is the difference? There are a couple subtle differences. So the transfer of funds is the first one. With PayPal, you are typically in what we call a manual sweep capacity, meaning that, as Courtney described it, you have to log into your PayPal account, and that's where your funds are received, and then you move them to your bank account. Stripe actually doesn't do that. Stripe doesn't hold the funds in between. When you collect them, when someone charges, they wind up in your Stripe account, and 24 hours later, they're automatically swept into your club's account. So there's an advantage there that no one has to actually go and move those funds manually. There's also a bit of simplicity in the options. There's only one Stripe, and PayPal has a lot of different flavors. As you'll see, we use PayPal on the website, or PayPal Standard, or PayPal Pro, but in person we use PayPal Here, and you use PayPal Consumer. So there is a bit of complexity there that you can avoid if you look at some of the other processing networks out there. But in person is the one I wanted to focus on for a second. And that is that while you can provide a QR code, if you're in person at an event, I actually recommend that you don't do the QR code thing, or if you have the ability to collect payments in person. The reason for that is the rate is lower if you have the card present. So for those of you that own small businesses and operate storefronts, you'll know that a card present transaction is typically less expensive than an enter transaction. So you can see that if you have a card present, you actually pay 2.6% plus 10 cents, slightly lower transaction fee for that. The way you would do that is you can swipe a credit card. That image on the screen there at the top there is the card reader that you can plug into a phone. PayPal has one as well. They're both available for free, so you can order them from whichever processor you decide to go with, and that will get you a slightly better rate for your transaction. As I mentioned, the Kiwanis WordPress templates do allow for the integration of both Stripe and PayPal. There is an advantage to PayPal here. PayPal, as Courtney mentioned, can do donations. The Stripe system is not set up to do that. So if you're looking to take straight donations on your website, that's a good option. If you're selling things off your website, or if you're setting up subscriptions where people can donate on a regular basis, you can do that with either network. So keep that in mind. I'm going to show you how this works, and so you can see a little bit of the difference. So we're going to do a little bit of a live demonstration here. So I'm going to switch over to, let's go ahead and switch over to this interface here. All right, so what you're seeing right now actually is the back end for the Capital District website. So you're used to seeing the front of it, which is what we have exposed to the public. This is actually the back administration end of it. And I'm going to create a new form. And I'm going to show you how quickly this can actually be done. I apologize if this gets a little technical, but stay with me. So we're going to just do a quick demonstration of Stripe in this case. And I'm creating a new form from scratch. So let's say I wanted to sell tickets to an event. I am going to go ahead and add, well, first I'm going to collect their name, and I'm going to collect their email address. Oops. Live software demonstrations, always scary. There we go. Let's try that again. Name, email address. There it goes. I was wondering what the delay was there. And let's go ahead now and add a product. So we're going to sell tickets to Pancake event, since that was mentioned earlier. And the cost of the ticket is $15. So you can see now we have a very simple form that just collects a name, email address, and the quantity of tickets that they would like to purchase. Now we're going to go ahead and add a Stripe credit card field. And it says we need to activate it. So let's go ahead and save that. And we'll activate a Stripe feed. As you can see here, let me show you real quick. Here on our payment screen, we have PayPal as an option. We also have Stripe as an option. And I'm just going to create a feed real quick. So we'll say we're going to sell a product or service. And it's just going to ask me what's the amount we want to charge. And that's going to be the total of the form. And I'm going to hit update. And I'm going to refresh my form. And voila, we now have a credit card information field. We'll go ahead and live preview that. So this is what it would look like on the website. So this is already live on a page. And let's go ahead and try it out. And you notice the user just got, thank you for contacting us. We'll be in touch with you shortly. But I just got notification that the transaction went through. So let's see if I can show that in my email. There we go. The form has already been processed. So the funds have already been moved to Stripe. So the user didn't receive any pop-up message. They didn't have to log into anything. It was just much simpler for the end user in that respect. So I am going to pause there, and we'll go back to the presentation. And go. All right, Courtney.
Thanks, Jeff. And thanks for that demo. So what's the point of all this? So as we talked about in the beginning, electronic payments are becoming the norm for a lot of people. Yeah, I always joke when we are connecting or collecting payments for membership or even collecting donations, some of our club members don't even have checkbooks anymore. And it becomes also very difficult to track cash donations. If you're taking cash donations, becomes more of a high liability. There is a lot of risk with accepting cash, especially if a bunch of your different members are collecting it. And for a lot of people, they just prefer to pay with credit card or debit card, or that's all they have available. You know, we've had, as you all know, we do pancake breakfasts twice a year, at least pre-pandemic. And sometimes we would have people come in and they wouldn't have any cash with them. And they wanted to come to the breakfast and they wanted to donate to our cause, but all they had was credit card and we didn't have a way to accept it. And like you see from Jeff's example, there's actually a credit card reader that's available. You can use in person. And then, you know, you can also sell tickets on the website, or people can use the PayPal link and buy them that way as well, or through Stripe. So it really becomes another way for people to make donations or to make payments to your club. And at the end of the day, the more ways people can donate, the more kids that we can help in the community.
There's often a debate amongst Kiwanis clubs when it comes to taking credit card payments about who should bear the cost of the transaction fee. And this is obviously something your club has to decide for yourselves. Most small businesses treat the credit card processing fee as the cost of doing business. And, you know, it's just easier that way. You will get ultimately more value offering a credit card option than if you do not. I can tell you, most people today do not want to write a check and drop it in the mail. That is a bridge too far. So if you're thinking about this for your club, it's definitely something you want to consider.
Yeah, I'll also say in regards to the fees, because as we saw, PayPal and Stripe both do charge fees. We, in the past, have covered those from our club. So either a member of the club has donated that amount. You can also sometimes, you know, for us, for example, one of our, as you saw with the backpacks, we suggest people donate $21 because that's the cost of feeding one child for 7 days. That's all of their meals for the week. So we encourage people to donate $21. If you don't want to pay for the fees yourself, or your club doesn't have the extra cash, you could always ask for a couple extra dollars as part of the donation. But for us, you know, we collected about $600 in our last PayPal donation round for backpacks. And I think the total in fees was less than $20. So it's not huge. You know, if you're collecting $10,000, $15,000 on PayPal, that's where it starts to add up. But like Jeff said, it is part of the cost of doing that electronic business.
This is Dennis. If I can jump in, I did some research. All of our 4 jurisdictions do allow to collect the extra. However, some of them do require you have certain language so the purchaser does know that they either have the choice of paying the extra or not paying the extra. So just do your research. I apologize, I don't know exactly what it is, but I do know that's legal. But be sure you find out the research on your state's language necessary.
Yeah, that is an option. You can add the cost of the processing fee into your form. But that does require a little bit more calculation work on the form side. It's not difficult though. So would that be a good bridge to questions and answers?
Yeah, I see there's actually already a couple of questions in the chats. The first is, what method do you recommend for weekly in-person payments of meetings and or meals?
So either will work. Just, you know, the one thing you want to do is avoid having 2 different platforms. So this is one of the advantages, I think, of Stripe, in that you can have one single platform. If you do PayPal in person, you have to use PayPal here, whereas you have to use PayPal, the PayPal Pro for your website, or regular PayPal standard. So it's slightly different. You can actually log into the same account though, but it does get a little bit more complicated from the setup standpoint. But either will work for in-person events, but definitely get a reader for that, so you can save the club a little bit of money.
Yeah. The next question was, does PayPal or Stripe interface with Facebook events where tickets are being sold?
I don't
That's
know
a good question. I'm not certain which payment processors Facebook uses. Honestly, you're actually better off using your site to accept the payment. You can always direct Facebook traffic to that site, though.
Hey, Jeff, it's my understanding from the last event I put on Facebook. I'm sorry, this is Jennifer with Colonial Heights.
No, please.
When I tried to go in and set our last golf tournament event up, it's directing you through Eventbrite, and their fees are a little steeper than most.
Yeah, so Eventbrite is using one of the payment processors, but they're probably tacking on a little bit on top of that.
Other question was from James. Years back, Square seemed to be the big app. It did not appear as one of your examples. Is it not as flexible?
It's not as flexible. I mean, it's still out there. It's still an option. But for example, Square is not even accepted in the Kiwanis WordPress templates. So we tried to keep it to things that clubs can use easily in their platform. It's still out there. Square is still out there. And actually, Square's big claim to fame is actually point of sale terminals. That's where they really do you'll see a lot of Square point of sale terminals.
Can you get a link from Stripe to post on social media, or should we just direct people to the website?
You should direct people to your website. The goal should always be to, I mean, I'll switch to a marketing hat. Your goal should always be to draw people to your site.
Makes sense. This one was from Fred. With Stripe, how do you control which club bank account receives the money, admin or project?
Excellent question. So when you set up your Stripe account, you have to link it to a bank account, just like PayPal. So you can decide which one you want to send it to. And you can actually link multiple accounts, and then you can change the auto sweep to go to the one you want based on the product you're selling.
I will say, after the original question, or after we talked about the manual versus the automatic sweep, we, of course, because we have PayPal, do the manual sweep. And I put this information in the chat, but we use that to better differentiate which money is for which project. So like we have 3 fundraisers going at one time sometimes. And I'll wait until the fundraiser is over, transfer all the money for one specific project at one time. And then I notify our treasurer which amount is for which project, which makes it a little bit easier for him to track. So it really just depends on the needs of your club, I would say.
Yep, it's a really good point. And with either platform, you can log in and get statements. So that's important. So you obviously will want to run, anytime you're accepting payments through either processor, you'll want to get transaction statements.
This is Don. I have a question. You've purchased pancake tickets. How does the individual get the ticket?
Well, therein lies, one of the things that you can modernize a bit. You don't actually have to give them a ticket per se. If they buy a ticket to an event on your website, you'll see in a lot of events today, if you buy a ticket to an event on a website and you show up at the event, they have a guest list. So rather than getting them a physical ticket, their name could simply be on a list. They've already paid for 2 tickets. You just admit them that way.
Okay.
And if they didn't,
DHL does that too.
email.
You could also, exactly, they are going to get a confirmation email from the forum. That confirmation email could in fact be their ticket as well. You could ask them to print it out and bring them to the event if you don't want to do a guest list approach.
Thank you.
But it also avoids you having to print as many tickets that way.
Yeah. A question from Chuck. For Stripe, can you talk about what information is required to register? We use a front end, but Stripe requires information which is not required by any of the banks our club uses. Our foundation treasurer will not provide the information.
Interesting. I don't believe Stripe requires any additional information than what PayPal does. Either processor will require an SSN for the person setting up the account. So some people are a little weirded out by that. But regardless of the fact that your club has an EIN, the payment processors require whoever's establishing the account to provide a social security number.
Okay, well, this is Chuck, and that's the issue. Ed just does not want to provide his social security number, and no bank requires that. They won't take the EIN.
No, they will not take the EIN, and you'll have to provide an SSN for either processor. It's not something specific to Stripe or PayPal. It's all of them.
Okay, so at least the club, I don't understand it. I've researched the FinCEN regulations. And none of this is required for the IRS.
I can't speak to the law involved, but I can tell you that all the payment processors require it.
Okay, I'll get back to him, but it's.
And it doesn't have to be his. That's the other thing. It does not have to be the treasurer's SSN. It just is a member of the club.
Okay.
So.
It's only required in Europe. I mean, in Europe, they have the requirement, but not in the US.
No, like I said, I can't speak to the law behind it.
Okay.
Other questions?
I have a
If you
quick
don't mind if I ask a question, it's more general. Our club's just looking at getting into this. I'll be curious, Courtney, you might be able to answer this. What are you doing for your dues? How are you accepting payments for your dues? I know this isn't in kind of off subject a little bit, but it still deals with electronic payments.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had originally talked about, we just set up PayPal last year for the first time, especially since, we're in this pandemic and we're doing everything virtually. It was even harder to collect check payments from people. The last time that we collected dues, we did still collect them in the traditional way, from check or from cash sometimes. Going forward, I think it would be great to be able to collect dues electronically. But it's just based on what our board decides and how we want to handle that. Right now, we're only taking donations through PayPal.
Okay.
I'll say that my Kiwanis club actually does accept dues payments via credit card, and it's made it a whole lot easier to get people to pay on time. I'm just being perfectly honest. We've been doing it for a couple of years now. And in fact, we allow our members to pay a split. So they can either pay the full amount in October or they can split it into 2 payments. And it's just a whole lot easier.
And you do that through QuickBooks, or are you doing it through?
Our treasurer does it through QuickBooks.
So you're getting a 3.5% plus 30 on that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you could also do it through one of the payment processors we talked about tonight for a slightly lower payment amount. But then there's no direct integration to QuickBooks.
Yeah, it might be a little bit more different. Might be worth the 1% to to have it integrate.
That's what our treasurer decided.
Thinking from the treasurer side of it, it might be. Thank you.
Sure.
So let me ask you a question about the nonprofit discount, because we've been trying to get that too, and we've not been successful breaking through whatever gate that is.
Courtney can speak to the PayPal one. I know from the Stripe side, all you have to do is send an email to nonprofit@stripe.com, and they'll ask for your determination letter, a copy of your determination letter.
Yeah, we did that. But then we're back to, you have to give us the SSN. So
Yeah, but that's you're going to have the SSN problem at either one of them, unfortunately.
Well, there's look in the chat. Fred, you want to speak up?
I don't remember giving them an SSN. I just remember using the club EIN.
Yeah.
Yeah, with PayPal, it's a little confusing because there's a couple of different things. You have the account holder, who is the person who has to provide the social security number and their home address. And that's really just for verification purposes that there's a real human working there. They're basically an employee of your business as PayPal sees it, because it's, you're technically a merchant once you sign up. For the actual club information, you do enter your EIN, and in my experience, it's a little complicated with PayPal. Depending on the information you provide, they'll give you more privileges. So we did not have the IRS letter originally that shows our EIN because, our club's like 80 years old and we just didn't have a copy. It really takes a long time to get one. So we actually could not even pay for anything using our PayPal account if we wanted to. We don't want to, so that's not a problem for us. But there are a lot of nuances in terms of what privileges you get as a merchant based on what information you provide.
So I have a quick question, Jeffrey, probably for Stripe, because it sounds like the best for the Kiwanis Seafood Festival that we have in Division 13. And in the past, we've used Eventbrite, and it was wonderful. But in the since COVID, they've sort of changed. They were excellent with customer service. You could call or even email, and now they will not even accept emails or telephone calls. Only you can chat with a robot. So my question with Stripe, are you able to speak with someone if there's a concern or a question?
Stripe does have customer service, but keep in mind, Stripe is a payment processor. Eventbrite is not a payment processor. They use a payment processor. They are an event tracking system. That's why their fee is a little bit higher, because they're taking the payment processing fee from either Stripe or PayPal, whatever merchant network they're using, and they're tacking on a percentage on top of that. So they're providing you additional services on top of Stripe or PayPal.
Our fee is only like 2.9% plus the 10 cents per transaction.
Right. So that's great. Then they're not charging you anything additional, it sounds like. But you can, I will tell you honestly, we at the district level, we managed district events back when we had in-person events. We manage them entirely through form tools online. We don't use an Eventbrite or another system like that. Is your club using the new WordPress site yet?
This is for the division wide. So
for the division, okay.
Yeah.
Well, but you can run it. You can run a division event from a club's site if you choose to. But the reason I asked that is that a full license to Gravity Forms, and I don't want to turn this into a webinar on the WordPress sites, but the Kiwanis WordPress sites for clubs and for the district include a full license to Gravity Forms, which will let you do, if you know what you're doing, will let you do everything, almost everything that Eventbrite does as well. And it lets you use, as I showed you, it lets you use Stripe or PayPal as the backend processor.
Okay.
I can provide a link that I'll ask Krista to send out for more information on that if anyone's interested.
Thanks.
Yes.
I would be.
All right, other questions? All right, well, thank you, Jeff and Courtney. You guys were great. I'm going to stop recording.